Can one intentionally create healthy relationships? And can these relationships help to impact society, albeit positively? We're going positive on this one. Good afternoon, and welcome to Tuesday Talks at 3, a platform where I help you get unstuck and onto your true potential through unlocking your limiting beliefs. I am a certified life coach, and bringing you today in this month of self-awareness is looking at the growth opportunities. Growth opportunities are so many if we choose to see them. We can go through life just complaining. Somebody once said to me that we are born crying, we live complaining, and we die lamenting. Such is a human nature. But now in self-awareness, you get the opportunity of seeing the different things that you can do for self. If you put yourself first, and I keep on saying this, you're able to fill yourself so that when you pour from this cup, you are pouring something of value, something that can be consumed outside you and impact. So today's question, can one intentionally create healthy relationships, is around that. What is it that you are pouring from your cup? Something to think about. Well, in this month of self-awareness, I promised you an exciting array of topics. We started off with self-awareness as a tool for success, and therefore it was about understanding yourself and knowing your areas of focus and what it is that you needed to do to move on from that place to the end game. That is realizing your dream, achieving your mission, enjoying the journey as you went along on this mission journey. The second one, which was the next week, we went on to self-awareness versus mental wellness. And we had our guest Samuel. And Samuel came in and he brought in the very important issue of just personal appreciation. Appreciate yourself. Trust yourself. Isn't it so easy to trust somebody else? And how come you can't trust yourself? This again is us achieving a higher sense of self-awareness. And coming out of that, we learned things about appreciating ourselves, appreciating how we spoke, how we dressed, our physical anatomy, just appreciating the knowledge that we have in certain areas. Just because there are certain areas I am so blank about, I know nothing about, doesn't mean that I will never amount to anything. It just means that I have an opportunity for growth there if I choose to take it. Otherwise, there are areas where I am good at stuff and I am able to show up as I am doing right now and execute. So the question to you is, what areas are you good at? And I asked you to write down these areas that you're good at and affirm, just self-affirm. He also talked to us about toxic relationships, toxic environment. So getting that inner peace is about releasing these toxins that you do not need in your life, because these toxins will hold you down. Just like in a system, when you've got all these toxins, it's unable to run smoothly, it's sluggish. So in your life also, what do you need to drop along the way? Is a season over for that particular thing that you're doing, that particular person that you're seeing, that particular job that you're holding, that particular space that you're in? Seasons come and they go. So that was self-awareness versus mental wellness. And last week, we looked at self-awareness and your personal brand. Just being aware of the fact that in your personal brand, there's a unique selling proposition. And what is that unique selling proposition? It is being uniquely you. And how can you sell the unique you? How can you leverage? And I brought it down, and I know it was a very simplistic way of doing it, but given the time that we have on Tuesday Talks at 3, it was the best that I could do with the time that we had. So I broke it down to being an introvert and being an extrovert. And I am an introvert, and many people do not believe it. It's just that in the definition of introvert and extrovert, it suggests that the extrovert is a person that you want to be because you are the life of the party. You are around people the entire time. This is where you get your energy from. You like to work in teams. You prefer to be in a situation where people are looking at you. You're a center of attention. And on the other side, an introvert is reserved. An introvert likes to work alone. It doesn't mean that there's a good or a bad trait here. For me, what I brought out very clearly last week is knowing when to show up as what. So I'm an introvert. I like to work alone, but I'm here speaking to you. This is not what an introvert does. This is me showing up as an extrovert when I need to. So there's that emotional intelligence that you're using from your aspect of your self-awareness. When you need to show up in a certain way, you show up. You do your homework. So of course it is harder for me to show up on a platform like this than it is for an extrovert. But the one thing that I do as an introvert is I go and I dot my I's and I cross my T's and I go over something. For the longest time, maybe too much, maybe I overthink it. But when I show up the way I'm showing up now, you've got my 100%. Does not mean that an extrovert does not do that. An extrovert can show up as an introvert, is what I shared with you last week. And if you missed the episode, please just visit me here on my live stories here on my IG and be able to get an insight of what it is I was discussing last week. So an extrovert, as I was saying, can show up as an introvert. How? So typically an extrovert will walk into a room and be center of attention, whether it is in the loudness that they dress up, or whether it is in the loudness of their voice, or whether it is in the knowledge that they're carrying and they're sharing. But they could choose to walk into a room and that day decide, I am here to learn. And therefore I'm going to sit in the back and watch and learn. It's not easy for an extrovert to do that, because the extrovert wants to be the center of attention. But now they have chosen to be an introvert to benefit themselves. Remember, it's about self-awareness. So when you're aware of the fact that I want to learn something, you choose which hat to wear and you come forth. I did talk about other tests that could help you understand yourself even better. Tests like the psychometric, the personality, the behavioral tests. They're out there, guys. There are amazing tools out there that you can use. So we talked about introvert and extrovert, and that's a great introduction to where we are today, because it's about growth opportunities. And today I'm going to talk about 2 areas where you can have growth opportunities to get a higher sense of self-awareness. I did share in my other series about Dr. Tasha Urish, who took out this sample, a group of 1,000 people at any one time, and she found out that out of the numbers that she sampled, only 15% was self-aware. The other 85% thought they were self-aware. In fact, they were cheating themselves. They were lying to themselves that they were self-aware. But now that they knew that they were not self-aware, it was not the end of the world. Now that they knew, what could they do? So this could be you. What can you do today to have a higher sense of self-awareness? And these 2 areas that I'm going to take you through are going to help you. And I'd love to hear your feedback here on IG, how this impacted you and whether it was a game changer for you. So can these healthy relationships impact our society? So why don't we start from areas of focus? What is your area of focus? Are you looking at spirituality perhaps? Are you looking at education? Let's pick education. Yeah, let's pick education there for a moment. And I want us to just walk with me on this as we look at 2 areas. I want to look at 2 determinants today, which is internal and external. That's your first tool. These determinants of internal and external. So by definition, the internal determinant is where you're coming from within. You're coming from a place of knowing what you want and how you want it, and then going out into the environment to acquire it, to do it, to implement it. But the action starts from within you, where you have the confidence in who you are and what you want, and you go out there with an open mind. You're going to learn. You're going to impact the society. Or secondly, you could be operating from the point of society dictates. Society tells you this is what is required, and then you come from that place, and then you bring it and you mirror it, and you make it a reality within you. Well, I submit that at least 90% of us are in this area of going from external to internal. I'll say that again. 90% of us are in this area of taking what society dictates and then making it a reality in our lives. 90%. What happens in this case when society dictates, and we're going to talk about education in a moment there, is that you live according to what society has decided is the norm. Chances are you will not be fulfilled. Chances are you will keep on chasing that rainbow. Chances are you're going to fill that part that is not fulfilled with destructive behavior, because we want to walk around feeling fulfilled. We are always chasing something. And until we get it, we are not satisfied. So that is where the 90% of people are. The 10% of people are in the first example that I gave you, where you're coming from within. You know what it is that you want, and you're going out there with a clearer mind. You're going out there with an open mindset. You're going out there willing to learn and to teach and to impact society. So when we ask the question, can one intentionally create healthy relationships, and how does it affect the society? We are specific to the point of a higher self-awareness. Are you aware that you can have these two options? So the growth opportunity, guys, comes from you wanting to shift from the 90% to the 10%. So let's talk education. So as you sit here, perhaps you're thinking, these are things that I would love to do. I love art. So I want to be able to express myself in art. And maybe I'm already expressing myself in this art, but I want to grow it. So you're coming from a point of within. What will this art do for me? This art is going to fulfill me in certain ways. I'm going to be able to impact my environment, perhaps. Or I am going to be a teacher for my children at home. They're going to learn from me. Or I am going to decorate my home, to do my interior decoration myself. You need to put a purpose, words to it. You need to put some kind of target to it. So you have a purpose. This is what you want to do. So you go out and you seek that education to improve what you already have, or maybe to learn from scratch. This is you playing on your best part, the things that you know, and then going out there and applying or learning. As opposed to the society telling you today, the only way that you can be that interior decorator, or you can be that teacher, is you need to have some education, let's say degrees or masters, undergrad, whatever it is, a PhD, and you're seeing all your peers are doing this. And then you decide, well, that's the one I'm going to do. I'm going to do art. And then you come and you manifest it into self. Remember, now this is starting from outside. You're taking from the point of society dictating what you should be doing. Then you're bringing it and trying to copy and paste it into yourself and manifest it from there. The levels of fulfillment in those two options, they really vary. And that is where the growth opportunity is, to go into a higher sense of self-awareness. So I repeat, for self-awareness, you want to be able to come from a place where you know what you want. And how do you start? Identify your areas of focus. What is it that you want to focus on? Because remember, whatever you're focusing on, that is where the energy will flow. Whatever you're focusing on, the energy will flow. So if you're focusing on improving self-awareness, and talking about the area of self-awareness will be in education, start from within. And then go out there and see what there is that you can use to be able to grow that internal self. Let's use another example, and this is a very contentious example, but it's one that is that needs to be put out there. The worth of it is so heavy. And I want to talk about the female gender. It is assumed, because society dictates, that a young woman will go to school and finish high school and go into university and get her qualifications, come out, find the love of her life, get children, and start to build a home from there. And once these children begin to grow, only then does she concentrate on her career. And this is what society dictates to a point. So if this girl comes out of high school and doesn't make it to university, she's already feeling that she hasn't achieved something. If she does achieve it and she gets her qualifications, doesn't get the love of her life, she's already feeling that she's falling short. Maybe she gets the love of her life and she doesn't get any children. Again, she's feeling that she's falling short. Why? Because society dictated to her this is what is supposed to happen. So she takes all this and comes and imposes it onto herself, her person, her internal, her copy and paste, and she's not happy. That is now external to internal. However, if this young woman was nurtured as she was growing up into what would you like to do? The world is an oyster. Build onto what your gifts are. Build on what your gifts are. This individual then comes up with what they perceive as something that is important for them, and they go ahead to achieve it. And you have seen quite a few people out there who do not have qualifications, higher level qualifications, but they are very fulfilled. I said it's a contentious issue, and it's a whole topic, a whole series of Tuesday Talks if we were to take them on headstrong. But however, if you think about this individual who comes from a point of this is what I would love to do and has an open mind to learn and be coachable, they go out there and they see the opportunities. They see these opportunities and they become more fulfilled. And from that point, when they start snowballing, then they can come back and say, perhaps I need certain qualifications. It's a contentious issue, I promised you, but I'm using it as an analogy to help you understand the internal and the external aspects. So where are you coming from? The question for today is, can one intentionally create healthy relationships? And how can these relationships impact society? So the relationship that you can create when it comes to education could be with your peers, it could be with the professors, it could be with the mentorship groups, whatever groups it is that you belong to where education is happening, where there's growth of the mind, those are relationships. The second example where I used about the young woman, the female gender, we talk about families. We're talking about the cultural aspect. We're talking about the social groupings. Again, these are relationships that you can already try to intentionally create healthy relationships. So how do you create healthy relationships? You need to sit down, and the example that I gave last week and the week before last is meditation. Now that you know what you know, maybe you don't know what you want, but in your meditation it comes to you, and you can be able to speak to self and understand what is it that I am looking for and where can I find it. You're coming from within. You're not being dictated to by society. So these healthy relationships that you're building are according to the purposes that you have set for self. Maybe you have decided that I am going to build on my network of people in a specific area. Now that you know what it is and you've written it down and you have a goal, you go for it. You set your intention. Many a times we are interested, but we don't get committed. So you will find you or somebody that you know keeps on saying, I want to do this. I plan to do this. I will do this. The time is here and now. And as you go along, enjoy the journey. In my creator framework, I actually take you through this. And the last bit of my creator framework is ride and enjoy the journey. Because this journey is able to help you understand self. You come to meet self face to face. I continue to say the question today is, can one intentionally create healthy relationships? I'd love to hear from you. Can you really create a healthy relationship? And can these healthy relationships impact our society? If you were the only person who could make a difference, what would you do? I would love to hear from you. So back to internal and external. From the examples I've given you, internal then comes out as being authentic, being real, something that is tangible, something that you can go back to and question and know where it came from. It is not a belief. It is something that is a truth to you, a higher sense of self-awareness. When we're looking at external, it is what the society dictates. And if the society dictates this, it is because it is taking it on general. This is what is supposed to happen. Society allows us to have some form of order. And therefore, when there's need for form of order, there are certain circumstances that are explained that you need to follow. But that is society dictating that this is the norm. And therefore, we end up to measure against this norm. But you do not have to follow this norm to the letter. This is the good news. You need to come from a place of self-authenticity, pouring from a specific cup that is full of that you have filled it with. Because tomorrow, when you are following society and you are not fulfilled, there's no place that you can go to question it. So that is your first tool. So your first tool is looking at, are you coming from within to go on the outside? This is your growth opportunity to change from the herd mentality where everybody is being driven by the society dictation. Be driven by what you believe you want to do, because then you hold the responsibility. You are accountable. You are able to say, I tried it, I failed, and I'm learning from that failure, and I'm trying again. I'm not quitting. I am not quitting. And from your experience, you can only get stronger. So that is the first tool. Now, the second tool is, are you aware of your shadow? And when I talk about your shadow, I am talking about your dark side. We are a sum of our light and our dark sides. It sounds sinister, doesn't it? But stay with me for a minute. Your dark side could be that side of you where you exhibit things that are not value driven, things that are more of a negative nature. You're human. And it is okay to err because you are human. Let's think about this. When a child is born, they're born with a good and the bad. They don't know it's a good and a bad. They know they're just being. And as they're playing out there in the house, talking, or whatever it is, being children, whatever is good is then identified for them and labeled, because then their guardians or their teachers will say, very good, happy that you did this, well done, I would love to see more. So more and more the child begins to get conditioned that this is a good thing. Now, if there's any bad behavior or negative attributes, then you're reprimanded or you are rejected. And very quickly the child begins to realize these are things that are not good. So if I want to get attention, I can get attention either by being a good person or being this naughty person. And then this person becomes an adult. And what have they done over the time? They have pushed the negative attributes under the carpet. And all they're doing is showing their good light. There's a problem with that, because you are suppressing your dark side. You are not addressing it. And anything that is not addressing, that is not being addressed, I beg your pardon, is just being blocked. And one day it's going to explode. And when it explodes, you yourself don't want to be around yourself when it explodes. So what do? You need to come to terms with this dark side of yours. So let me give you an example that is going to help you understand the dark side. And I'll give you an example of myself and take you through 4 steps to help you be able to unearth this dark side, face it, and embrace it. Because it is important that you embrace your dark side for you to have fulfillment, so that you do not self-sabotage, so that you can manage your self-doubt. This is something that I learned along the way, the hard way. But I don't want you to go through the hard way. I want you to understand where I'm coming from so you can apply it in your life. Mine was laziness. You see, my trait is borderline perfectionist. This is who I am. By the time I'm showing up here, I have dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's. You heard that I'm an introvert. So there are a lot of things that are going against me. So I could either be a victim and say, oh, I don't have the predisposition, or, there are people who are better than me. I just don't have the energy. Or I could just sit back and let life go by me. Or the best one that I like is be a creator. I choose to be a creator, but I know that I need to be disciplined and determined for me to move from point A to B and to grow. Because then change is inevitable. It has to happen. So right back to that point of laziness. My dark side is laziness. And how do I know this? Step 1, and I'd love you to write this down. How do you start to identify your dark side? The best way to do this is sit and just watch what gets you angry. What irks you about somebody or about the society? Forget about self for now. What irks you about somebody or society? Well, what irks me is laziness. I cannot stand laziness. I believe that you need to have a game plan every day. And if you don't have a game plan every day, you're lazy. This was my understanding, number 1. Number 2, that you do have a game plan, but you're too lazy to put it into action and apply it every day. For me, that was laziness. So what did I do? Now that I knew that that is what I was thinking about, I had identified the one thing that I felt was my dark side. Laziness, not liking lazy people. That's step 1. So step 2 is now take that laziness or whatever it is you have named it and apply it to self. So when was I lazy? So for me, it's laziness. What is it for you? Think about it. What is that one thing that annoys you about people or the society? Now take it and now turn it to you, like you're turning the mirror, and let it face you. So I asked myself, have I been lazy? What are my situations of lazy? And I went back to my youth. And I realized that being a perfectionist came as a result of conditioning as a child. There were things that I didn't do right, and I was lazy. My parents perhaps labeled me as lazy at that time because they said to me, you can do this, Lucy. Stop being lazy. Can you hear? It's coming to me as lazy. And as I grew up into a teenager, into a young adult, the laziness was there, but I fought it. I fought it by ensuring that I had all my ducks in a row, that I couldn't be shaken. Never was I going to be found being lazy. But you see, for me, that was a limiting belief. There was no proof that I was lazy. It was until I became an adult that I started to question, am I really lazy? And if I am, can I speak to it? This is your second step. Speaking to that laziness, trying to understand why that laziness happened and where it is. Now that I know it was in my activity or inactivity of being lazy, I am able to identify where it's at. I then ask myself, the third one, once I bring it back to myself, I speak to it and I ask laziness, what do you want of me? Who are you, laziness? You begin to question it, guys. I know it sounds like it's something so simple, but it is profound. And when you question yourself about this laziness, in my case, I then realized that I needed to be gentle on self because I am not lazy. This was something that created my current state, that I do not like laziness. There was a season where I was lazy and I have moved on. But what have I done? I am so hard on myself that when there's a task to be done, I put my head down and I get the task done. At times, to my own negative aspects, I end up finding that I've beaten myself up, I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not trusting self. All these negative vibes come out. What are you doing to yourself that you're not even aware of unless you do this exercise? Do you know what came out from my exercise? Lucy, you're not lazy. If anything, look at your achievements. And because I spoke to self, I found that I had been projecting from that point where I was feeling vulnerable. And that is why I didn't like lazy people. And that is why I felt very free to tell you that you are lazy. Be careful when people label you. There are times, perhaps, they are coming from a point of pain. So don't be that person who labels other people. Identify what your dark side is. Turn it onto yourself. Have a conversation with it. Identify where it could have come from. Question. And then the fourth step, embrace it. Embrace it. Because you're allowed to make mistakes in life. The worst thing is when you do not learn from these mistakes. I hope those 4 steps have been able to help you identify areas of your dark self. So where are the opportunities for growth? For us to be able to transcend to self-awareness, a higher self-awareness. When you are aware of your dark side, when you're conscious of your dark side, it will help in your relationships. It will help in your relationships. More often than not, you will attract that person that you are fighting not to be within. You will attract that person. So maybe I would attract lazy people into my groups because that is what I'm pouring out. This is where I'm coming from. And then I project it. And when I am projecting it, then I'm actually failing. I am projecting because I am failing in my own self-awareness. I should be helping people, like I say in LMC consultancy, to help build one another. So be honest with yourself. It is only you who's doing this. Try the meditation first thing in the morning, have a discussion with self, and see where it takes you. This will enhance your physical and your mental well-being. Why? Because you will no longer be pulling this luggage of suppression. You will be having a sense of freedom. You heard me right. You will be having a sense of freedom. And be kind to yourself. When you're not kind to yourself, there's all this self-doubt that comes, imposter syndrome that comes in, and self-sabotage. In fact, I have a group on Facebook right now. It's a private group. And if you'd like to join, just direct message me to join it. And every Wednesday, I give 15 to 20 minutes of a chat. And this month, I am looking at ways that we self-sabotage. Ways that we self-sabotage. Last month, we were talking about procrastination. So just make a point to drop me a message here, and I will come back to you. So as we come to the end of our session today, I would just like to encourage you on the areas of growth. The 2 that I have given you. Identify that you can come from your internal to external. It's very scary because that means you are in total control. You can't blame anybody now. But if you come from external to internal, you can blame the society and say, but this is what society dictates. So I encourage you to take up this growth opportunity to a higher sense of self-awareness by being part of the 10% that know self and operate behavior from there, manifesting it into society. Secondly, getting into contact and being conscious of your darker side, because you are made up of 2 sides, your light and your dark. And if you suppress your dark side, it will explode. And that is not a good place to be. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do hope that this has been a game changer for you. And next week, you join me for the last episode of Self-Awareness as we go into the month of September, where we are going to be looking at human resource performance. It's all about personal development here at LMC Consultancy. And until next week, be kind to yourselves.